All right, welcome everybody to the poster session design webinar. We thank you for joining us. Some of you are on in very early times where you are, so we thank you. My name is Shira Babo. I'm a project associate with EPIC at Training Resources Group. We are supporting the Global Education Conference. I'm joined by a couple of my colleagues here, and I will let them introduce themselves now.
Hey everyone, this is Darren Cambridge. I'm also with Training Resources Group supporting the conference, so it's good to be with you all this morning or afternoon, wherever you may be.
Good morning, I'm Tom Lent and I also work with EPIC.
Awesome. Thank you for introducing yourselves. We will be joined a little bit later by Julene Heaney, who is our event management coordinator for the Global Education Conference coming up in a couple of months. So before we dive in, I want to ask a couple of questions, and by a couple I mean 3. So the first one I would love to know from you all is, have you ever delivered a poster presentation before? And there is a place to vote on your screen to the left of the chat box. I'm going to give you about 10 to 15 seconds to do that now. Great. It looks like most of you have, and a few of you have not before. That's awesome. Always good to know where we're starting at. I'm going to give it about 5 more seconds in case anybody wants to make a last-minute vote here, and then I'll switch us to the next question. All right. The next question that it would be helpful for us to know as we start is, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being uncomfortable and 5 being very comfortable, how comfortable are you with delivering a poster presentation? So that, again, is to the left of the chat box. I will give you a few seconds to read through those and answer. All right, it looks like we have a range. It's always good to know where you're starting from here as we dive into things. And the final question that I have for you as we head into the meat and potatoes here of this webinar is, what type of poster presentation are you planning to deliver? And do read these carefully. You can pick multiple options in that box to the left. And if you're not sure yet, that's also okay. Just let us know here. All right. So if there's anyone else trickling in with answers here, I will give you a couple seconds to do that. It looks like we have a mix of people who are planning on a physical poster, a PowerPoint or MP4 played on a laptop, and some people who are not sure yet, which is absolutely fine. We are not forcing you to know yet, but it's always, again, good to know where we're starting from as we dive into this. So I'm going to turn it over to Darren, who's going to go through our guidance.
Thanks, Shira, and thanks to all of you for responding to the poll. I think it's what we share, the meat and potatoes, as Shira said, is going to be relevant to all of you regardless of what you're thinking so far. So we'll jump right into it. The goal of this webinar is to set you all up for success as poster session presenters at the conference. So we're going to share with you the logistics of the poster session, and that involves, 1, the overall physical layout of the conference venue and the actual location where your posters or visual displays will be set up. It'll also, the logistics will look at the other resources that will be made available to you when setting up your space. And then 3, the actual scheduling and the flow of poster sessions throughout the day. So we'll look at those logistics, and then we'll delve into the pedagogy and ask you all to consider what kind of experience you want conference participants to have when they visit your poster session. And how is that going to impact how you go about designing your poster and how you plan to engage people. But first, I wanted to revisit what it is that's bringing us all together on April 6th. So on April 6th, 600 people from across the education sector are going to flock to Washington, D.C. to explore a variety of technical areas through the lenses of 4 overarching themes. And those are coordination and collaboration, evidence-based decision-making, self-reliance, and systems strengthening. So those are the overarching themes that are guiding all of the conversations that we'll be having during the conference. And as the education sector, I don't think there's any question that everyone is going to show up with the important content, information, and stories that are going to address those themes. But we also need to show up with the pedagogy that the research on education tells us actually generates learning results. So I wanted to pause right here and hear from you all to continue this conversation. We learned at the beginning of the webinar that some of you actually have experience designing or presenting a poster presentation. So we want to give you all 30 seconds to share one tip that you have for designing or presenting a poster presentation. And we ask that you type your comment in the chat window. And then as they come in, we'll see how they compare with some of the tips that we'll share for the remainder of the webinar. So again, if you've designed or delivered or seen a poster presentation, type in the chat window what's one tip that you all would share for making a really great poster or visual presentation. Okay, we've got them coming in now. We've got Kelsey, who says clean and visually organized. Carol writes that poster should be clean, again, with lots of white space and engaging visuals. I'm loving this already. I think if you do a Google search of poster presentations and images show up, you'll see that not a lot of people follow that advice. It's a lot of text crammed with no white space, and it makes it very difficult to kind of see what's going on. So I think those first 2 are great. Jane writes, have related handouts. Also great. We're going to touch on that a little bit. Rachel writes, more visuals, less words. This is perfect. I think we can end the webinar now. I don't think we need to go on any further. No, this is really great. All right, so keep typing in tips if you have them, and we're recording them. And I'll move ahead now in the webinar to talk about logistics and what's the space that you'll be working with. We thought it would be really helpful for you all to actually see, here's where my poster or visual display is going to go and what that space looks like. So what you're looking at here on the screen is the Hilton DuPont in Washington, D.C., where the conference is being held, and this is the entrance to the main conference area. That's where most of the conference will be happening. So let's walk you through these doors. Once you walk through those main doors, this is what you're going to see. What you're looking at is the main open space where conference attendees will be able to gather in between sessions, so during breaks and during lunch. And if you go through the doors of the gray wall in the back of this photo, that's where the main plenary space is set up. And that's where we can seat 600 or so people. And then in addition to that large plenary space behind that gray wall, some of the other breakout rooms where sessions will be held can be accessed from this space. And some other breakout rooms are on 1 floor above. But for our purpose, if you follow the red arrow around the corner, that's where the poster sessions will take place. And so we're going to take you there now. So as you can see, there are 4 dedicated spaces where your poster or visual display can be set up. And then the red dotted line towards the back of the photo is where our conference space ends and another conference space begins. So there will be another conference happening at the same time as a global education conference, and they have the kind of back part of this space. So that's why our space to put up posters ends where that dotted line is. And I think it's also good for you to know that those conference attendees, they'll stay on their side, we'll stay on our side, but this will be a relatively crowded area, so a lot of foot traffic. And then this is a photo of that same space, but with people, so it can give you a sense of scale and give you a better idea of how many people you could realistically have gathering around your poster at any one time. And then there's 2 other things that you may have access to if you wish for your setup, and that is a 3-foot tall highboy round table that you can place handouts on, or if you're bringing a laptop, you can use it for that. You'll also have the option of using a Flipchart easel if you want to hang pictures or have people interact with or write something. You also have access to this easel. It's also important to mention what the conference will not be providing. So where you set up your poster, there will be no electricity or power cords provided. We will not be providing laptops, so if you do need to show an MP4, a video file, or a PowerPoint, you will need to use your own laptop. And because there's no power, make sure that your battery is fully charged, or when you have an opportunity to go and charge it before your session starts again. We will not be providing any large monitors or slide advancers, and we will not be providing seating or chairs for either presenters or attendees for obvious reasons. You can tell from the pictures of the space that we showed, it wouldn't accommodate that. But reasonable accommodations will be made for presenters with special needs. And then how it works, this is a simple breakdown. So as you saw, there are 4 spaces for posters that are going to be available each day of the conference. And there are 3 periods per day where posters are being presented. This is on Monday and Tuesday. So there's these 3 time blocks where people will be able to go and view and interact with the posters. And each of those periods are 30 minutes long. So let's take a look at what that looks like on Monday. So this is a breakdown of Monday's schedule. We got the plenary in the morning, and then you'll see highlighted in yellow is the first poster presentation block from 11 to 11:30. These run alongside the break. So people will be coming out of their sessions or coming out of plenary in mass, and they'll have access to coffee and tea, and then the gallery of poster presentations will be right there for them to engage with and interact with. So again, the breaks and poster presentations are happening at the same time. Then they go into concurrent sessions, then lunch. That's great because your poster can be up during lunch as well. I mean, most people will be in line getting their lunch and eating it, but this is still an opportunity for people, if they so choose, to go and visit your poster. More concurrent sessions. We have another 30-minute block from 2:30 to 3. They go back into session, and then another 30-minute block from 4 to 4:30 for poster presentations. So that's a breakdown of what it looks like on Monday, for example. So if you can start thinking about, you're there presenting at your poster, how and when you need to get to your section, your area, to engage people if that's what you choose to do. So I'm going to pause actually right there, and we're going to take just 2 to 3 questions at this point. Questions about the physical layout and the setup logistics for your poster presentation. So we'll give folks just 20 seconds to type your questions if you have any in the chat window, and we'll address them as they come in. We are going to have additional Q&A at the end of the webinar, so don't worry if your question doesn't get asked during this portion. But again, we also ask that keep your questions now to any questions around the physical layout or setup logistics.
Something that's good to clarify as well is that you saw there were 4 poster slots or spaces to use. That means we will have 4 posters presenting all on Monday, and then on Tuesday it'll be 4 different posters. So you get a full day to do your 3 poster session presentations, and then that will change. So you're not constantly sitting up and tearing down during that process.
Thanks, Shira. Yeah, that's huge. And also it lets you know that if you've got those 3 30-minute time blocks, that's an hour and a half of time that people have access to your poster presentation. So the poster presentation is actually a really great format, depending on the content or what you want to share, because it is a decent amount of time to reach a lot of people.
Jane, so I know that you've been in contact with Julene. Jane says, I never received the letter informing us that our poster was accepted and giving other info that Julene has referred to. Could someone please send me that letter? Julene is actually on the line. I don't know if you want to weigh in here or if you want to follow up at a later time, Julene. Now would be the moment. And Julene, you may be on mute.
Hi.
Oh, here she
Sarah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Say it again. You were on mute.
Oh, you're not, we cannot hear you, Julene. You're a little quiet. We cannot hear you at all, Julene. So Jane, if Julene, you can type to Jane directly in the chat box if that's easier, because it's a more direct question since we can't hear you. In the meantime, Stanley has asked, this means we put the poster up and take it down for the 30-minute blocks throughout the day, or do we keep it up all day?
Yeah, you keep it up all day. So if you go back to that schedule on Monday, you can set up your poster presentation on Monday, and then it'll be up and accessible from 9 a.m. all the way to 5:30, and then at the end of the day, you'll take it down, and then a new set of poster presentations will be set up for Tuesday. So you'll have it up all day, and then you'll just have to be responsible for going and standing next to your poster during those breaks so that you're there to answer questions or engage in conversations, if that's what you intend the experience to be around your poster. All right, I think that's good. We'll move on, and again, we'll take some more questions at the end. So now that we touched on the physical layout, the space, and setup considerations, let's take a look at what research tells us about effective presentations and learning. So when presenting information, what we know is that retention is increased by almost 30% when graphics are used, text is limited, the conversation is prepared, and job aids or handouts are provided. So in the comments and tips that were shared earlier in this webinar, you all hit on a lot of those already. So given this, let's actually think about the various ways you might want folks to engage with your content, your poster, and you, because those will all have implications about how you go about designing your poster and that experience. So what kind of poster session experience do you want to deliver for the conference attendees? There are 5 that we'll lay out here. The walk and read, the one-on-one, the small group conversation, participant contributions, and then product dissemination, all of which, again, lend themselves to different design techniques and approaches. So we'll walk through them one at a time. So no matter what you decide to do with your poster and how you plan for people to interact with it and with you, your baseline is always going to be the walk by and read experience. That's part of why poster sessions were invented in the first place for conferences. So with that in mind, a couple things that you should ask yourself are, first, how am I going to draw people towards my poster? Like, what is it that's going to capture their attention? And also, maybe not all people. Maybe there's a specific group of individuals that you want to reach at the conference. There's 600 people there, but maybe there's a specific sector that you want to reach. How are you going to capture that audience? And then second, how do I design my poster to accommodate people standing at different distances? So that means thinking about your font size, the colors that you're using, the spacing of content and graphics, etc. Again, that was mentioned at the beginning in the tips that you all shared around take advantage of white space. That is going to increase the chances that people actually are able to follow what you're trying to communicate and will draw them towards your poster. And then a great resource to use as a model is actually linked in the additional resources box at the bottom of the webinar page. So if you look at the bottom left side under online resources, there's a link called How to Create a Better Research Poster in Less Time. It's a video. It's actually quite humorous as well, but it provides a great technique for how to go about designing a poster for a conference. Here is a quick snapshot. We're not going to go into the details of all the stuff that's written there, but again, we can provide a link to that in the online resources, or we'll send it out with the recording. But it shows you how to use the space on the poster. So the next level or type of experience would be having one-on-one conversations with participants as they come by your posters. So if this is what you're visualizing your poster session to be like, a couple questions to consider are, one, how long do you want to invest in each conversation or interaction with another person? Do you want this to be like a quick 1 minute and then move on to the next person? Do you want to have it to be like a 5-minute elevator pitch? Start to think about how you want that interaction to go. And then are there handouts that you can provide that you can give to people once that interaction or that conversation is over? So if you're doing a short 1 or 2 minute talk with somebody as they come by, it's not a lot of time. There may be probably more information that you want to share. What's that handout that you have ready to go to say, hey, thanks for coming by my poster. Keep reading it or looking at it, and here's an additional handout to take with you. And then when it comes to having the conversation being prepared, are there a list of questions that you are prepared to answer about your poster's content? And if so, you could have those questions listed on your poster, and then visitors can decide which of those questions they want to ask you when they walk by. So maybe you don't have one prepared thing you're going to say to folks, to every single person. Maybe you have a few prepared things that are responses to questions, and then they can decide, oh, yeah, I'm interested in that question. Talk to me about that for 1 minute, and then you move on to the next person. So those are some techniques and things to consider for the one-on-ones. Another type of experience would be small group discussions. So 5, 10, 15 people gathered around you and your poster to have a discussion, ask questions. So a couple things to consider if this is the type of experience you're envisioning is, one, how are you going to signal for people to gather around? Like, oh, I'm about to begin. Come, gather around. How do you plan to do that and signal that to folks? How many groups, small groups, do you want to reach in the time allotted and the space that you have? So as we talked about earlier, you have 30-minute time blocks. People are also going to be coming in out of sessions, so I would actually say more like 20 minutes, realistically. You're going to have how many small groups of people do you want to engage with in that 20-minute time period, and how are you going to utilize the space that you have? And then what are the main points that you want to share in that time frame, and make sure that they're main points that aren't already written up on your poster. You don't want to just vocalize what's on the poster. You want to add to it, build on it, dive a little bit deeper, because everything else folks can just read on your poster. Another approach, and I don't think anybody selected this at the opening poll, but is one that involves participants that are actually interacting not just with you, but with your poster presentation itself. So if you're interested in creating or adding this type of experience to your poster session, here are a few questions to consider. So one question is, are there ideas or examples that you want to gather from participants to help advance your work? So you may have some ideas, some things that you want to discuss, but you're actually looking to participants to kind of fill that out even more. And this is a great opportunity to do that when you've got, again, hundreds of people in the education sector doing similar work. This is an opportunity to gather those examples and ideas. Another one is, are there questions that you want to gather from participants and then perhaps answer at a later point on a blog that could be posted on EduLinks, or there could be a follow-on webinar. So you may not be able to get to every single question in the 2 days of the conference, but you can gather a lot of those questions, take a little bit of time to think about them, and then share out a resource after the fact. So that's a great way to reach a lot of participants as well based off of their needs and their questions. Another question is, are there reactions that you want to hear from attendees that can help you refine your work, make it better, more informed, have more examples? So you may be presenting something that would benefit from having other perspectives added to it, and this is an opportunity to do that. Are there people whose information you want to collect in order to facilitate networking around your session? So how do you gather people's information around, again, the topic of your poster? People are coming by, they're showing their interest, and you want to connect those people and build those relationships. Maybe you could use your poster presentation and participant contributions to do that. And then, you know, in summary, how do you want your session to harvest collective wisdom, knowledge, or inquiries from the larger group? And then last is product dissemination. So we talked about handouts as being a best practice. You have limited space, you have a limited amount of time, just as other sessions do, to really reinforce learning and share additional information. Providing handouts is a good opportunity to do that. Now, you can print them out and you can bring them with you and have them there. You could also produce just a one-pager or small business cards that have links to resources so that people can rely more on digital content so you don't have to print as much paper. But there are a lot of ways to get your content out there besides just printing information. But because you have access to those high tables, know that providing handouts is a really good practice. So with those tips in mind and considering how you envision engaging with participants around your poster, I hope that you all are able to give the best poster presentation ever at the Global Education Conference. And I'm going to hand it over to Shira, who will share some important deadlines.
Great, thank you, Darren. So these are deadlines that are important for you to understand. You have received a follow-up email. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the wrong thing to click. You received a follow-up email in mid-January that gave you a link to a form as well as telling you about this webinar. On that form is a space to upload your session title that you finalized, your session description that you finalized, to confirm who your presenters and co-presenters, if you have any, are, and to upload a PowerPoint or poster design. So that being said, on February 24th, walking back to a little bit to a different topic, that is the final day that we ask you as presenters to book rooms. The link to do that is in the left-hand side. It's the first link under online resources. So if you have not booked a hotel room and you need one, now is the time to do that. Following that, on February 28th, we ask that you finalize your session title and finalize the description of your poster session. We ask that you put that on the form and submit it. We also ask that if you are presenting a PowerPoint on a laptop or if you have your poster design, we do ask that a preliminary version of that is uploaded just so that we know you're making some progress with that. And then on March 20th, we do ask that the final PowerPoint or poster design is uploaded onto that form. So those are the upcoming deadlines that you should be aware of. Again, this PowerPoint is available for download in the downloadable resources box so that you can have this and refer to it whenever you need to. And other than that, that is all that I have for upcoming deadlines for you. At this point, it's a good place to pause again and see if there are any questions that we can answer from you. So I'll give you about 20 seconds to do that. Oh, goodness, don't ignore that. My mouse has a mind of its own today.
Yeah, as people are thinking about any remaining questions they have about their poster session, I wanted to quickly go back to handouts as well. We do plan on providing a online digital version of the conference program, which means that if you do have handouts that are related to your poster and you don't want to print them out, we can make them accessible on that program. So if people go and search for your poster session on that online program, we can have links there that they can access those handouts. And I believe that there is an option in that form site where you, maybe not? No. Okay. If that's something that you want, we're gonna reach out and find a way to make sure that we can get those links from you so that we can include those in the final program. But this is not something that we're gonna deal with that, I think, when we get much closer to the conference in March. So it's not something you have to worry about now, but that is an option as well. Yes. So poster size specifications, I'll tell you what those are. So your physical poster can be a minimum of 22 inches by 28 inches and a maximum of 36 inches by 48 inches. And we'll type that in the chat window as well.
A minimum of...
Minimum is 22 inches by 28 inches, and maximum is 36 inches by 48 inches.
36 by 48?
Yep.
Sorry.
So they can get pretty big if you want.
Thank you for the question, Stanley. That was great. Any other questions that you want to pose at this time? All right. It's looking like few people are thinking about it and you have some good ideas, so that's good. Moving towards the end here, since we've thrown a lot of information at you in this and have gotten some questions back, let us know one thing that you're going to take away from this webinar as you delve into designing your poster session. Go ahead and type that into the chat box as you think of it. Give you a few seconds to do that. Excellent. I see Stanley's got a good comment of great ways to engage participants, thinking of questions that they might want to address to us and listing those on the poster. It's a great point. Great takeaway. And from Carol, deciding whether to focus on the use of PowerPoint or on a physical poster or both to best communicate visually. Also good food for thought. Glad to see the size specs. Is that landscape or vertical? I think it's up to you, Jane. You can choose if you want that to be landscape or vertical. All right. So if you think of more takeaways, feel free to type those in the chat box. But as we leave here, I just want to pose one more time to you on a scale of 1 to 5. How comfortable are you with delivering a poster presentation? And I'm going to allow you as much time as you'd like to put your vote in the final participant poll box to the left. as you are doing that. Otherwise, if you have additional questions, I'm going to type in the chat box the email to send that to, but also for those listening, the email to send that to is gfu@usaid.gov. And I'm going to type that in the chat box here. We are here to help you with this as you are finishing up. I have also put it now on the screen for you. And we thank you very much for your time and your questions and comments.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing your posters. The descriptions are really exciting, and I think it's going to be a really cool experience for people to engage with your content.
We answer